At the end of the day, the value of any business, it comes down to two numbers. It comes down to what is the true cash flow profit of the business and what multiple of that cash flow profit is a buyer willing to pay.
Hey, how's it going, everyone? It's Tim Brown, and this is the Hook Better Leads podcast. And today I have none other than John Bartlett of Brentwood Growth. How you doing, sir?
I'm good, man. How are you today?
I am doing excellent. We're talking about 7 reasons legit buyers won't buy your business. And everyone has those emails right now, right? 10, 20 emails in your inbox telling you why you should sell your company now, saying that they've got a buyer or they are a buyer or so on. How do you sort through those? Just as a kickoff, John, how do you sort through those emails as a owner of a business and know who's legit and who's not?
It's tough, dude. And let me give you some context on this to tell you why all this has sort of blown up in the roofing space in the last, 3 or 4 years in particular.
Yeah.
So, private equity firms, institutional buyers, they're always looking for large fragmented industries that have good economics that they can do roll-up consolidation plays in. And by roll-up consolidation, I mean, they can raise a fund from investors. They've got capital to invest. They can go out and look at a sector. They can buy 10 to 20 companies in those sectors in different geographical markets that all have similar characteristics. And then by taking those individual companies and those individual brands in those individual markets, they can have them be owned by a holding company. And so the value of the holding company increases as the aggregate cash flow profitability of all of these companies grows. And so, they can go out and they can buy a roofing company for a multiple of, maybe, 4 times, 5 times, whatever it is. And it might be generating $1 million of cash flow. So they're paying $4 to $5 million for that business. And then if they're able to buy 20 other companies and put it in this holding company, and now they've got a holding company over a 3 to 5 year period, even without any organic growth within these individual companies themselves, the holding company now is generating $20 million of profit. They can sell that business for maybe 12 to 15 times. And it's sort of crazy to think about. They can triple the value of that individual company that they bought by rolling it up into this holding company. And, they bought the business for $4 million, and now it might be worth $12 million because it's owned by this holding company. And so, I mean, it's a little bit of financial engineering that they're doing. Quite frankly, it's the same. Andrew Carnegie did this with U.S. Steel 150 years ago. Rockefeller did this with Standard Oil. So it's not a new.
One of my competitors got bought, and I went and talked to the guy who bought them, and I was like, do I need to be scared? Like, it was a bigger software company. I was like, do I need to be scared? Like, how hard are you guys going to go on this? And he's like, this is just EBITDA arbitrage, brother.
That's all it is. That's all it is.
And I had to step back for a second and think I can't hate on that. I mean, if they went and sold themselves that software company for a multiple based on software, not on marketing, and they got way higher of a multiple, that was a smart move to grab a $2 million agency and turn it into a $20 million agency and get 15x instead of 5x or whatever. So yeah, you gotta look at this. I think it's also people get too emotional about private equity sometimes. I think, just real briefly, this is my update on all this. It's we just gotta time it right. I think most of you should sell. That's what I believe. Or become tech enabled, become super hyper efficient, and just make it spit out money for yourself. Fix the things that they were gonna fix anyways, because a lot of times there's a holding company, but otherwise they're getting deals on stuff and they're fixing the big stuff that you didn't want to fix. So it's a better company. We're going to talk about what you should fix because there's a lot of people that will not buy your company because these things are broken. So John, let's start with 1099 versus W2. What is your take on that? What do you think private equity wants right now? And we're going to kind of go through this list kind of quick.
Join us January 5th through the 7th at Oklahoma City Convention Center for RoofCon 2026. It's going to be amazing. I hear there's somebody special that's going to be keynoting there. I'm going to be speaking. It's going to be really, really fun. And the best part is not even the speakers at events like this. Bringing the roofing industry together, talking about all the most cutting edge technologies and new methods, the best people in the industry sharing great information as well as having community. That's what it's all about, having community and creating relationships. So join us. That's January 5th through the 7th at Oklahoma City Convention Center.
Well, let me first tell you, when it comes time to value the business, what determines the value of the business? Okay, and I want to frame that because I think all the things that we talk about here, it's going to come back to what determines the value of the business. Okay, so at the end of the day, the value of any business, it comes down to two numbers. It comes down to what is the true cash flow profit of the business, and what multiple of that cash flow profit is a buyer willing to pay. Okay. Buyers are buying businesses' ability to produce cash flow profit. And it doesn't matter if you're talking about Amazon or you're talking about Google or you're talking about Tesla or you're talking about your business or my business. The value of any business comes down to those two numbers. What's the cash flow profit and what multiples a buyer willing to pay for the business? So buyers are buying businesses' ability to produce cash flow profit. They want repeatable, they want predictable, they want sustainable, they want growing cash flow profits. They measure their risk of those cash flow profits changing should they buy the business. They measure their risk by the multiple that they're willing to pay. Smaller businesses that have revenue mixes that they're not looking for, that have a lot of owner dependency, where they don't have confidence that the employees are going to stick around. And I'll answer the 1099 question in a moment. But if a business has those characteristics, they're going to say, okay, the business might have made $1 million last year, but how much confidence do I have that the business is going to continue to generate those level of profits? If they perceive there's risk in that cash flow, they're going to pay a lower multiple for those businesses because there's more risk in that cash flow. They might pay 2 to 3 times. They might pay 3 to 4 times, but they're going to penalize the value of the business because they think there's risk in that cash flow. Larger businesses that have the right revenue mix that we'll talk about in a moment, that have a good leadership team, that have a lot of stable employees, that doesn't have a lot of owner dependency or any
Yeah, so we're
owner
getting into the
dependency.
list here. We're getting
I
into
know,
the
I know, but
I just
but
want to position this as the 7 top things because I think that that's going to be easier for people to metabolize. Because we're getting into owner dependency, so that's one of them. If it has
we'll get
owner
to that.
dependency,
We'll get to that. Yeah. Okay. So if a business has a lot of 1099 employees and it doesn't have a stable base of W2 employees, a buyer's going to view the loyalty that those owners have to the business as being more risky, and they're going to pay a lower multiple for that. And so the more W2 employees you can have within the business, on the marketing side, on the sales side, on the ops side, on the field management side, wherever, the more W2 employees, it's a stable business from a buyer's perspective. They're going to pay a higher multiple for that.
Yep. So that's number 1. A lot of companies have been doing this, but a lot of companies have been switching over. I noticed 2 years ago, there's a lot more 1099 and now there's a lot more W2. And still you could, is it true, John? Tell me if you know this is true. You can do a W2 employee, but you could have a very low or non-existent base and do mostly incentive pay, essentially, or like commissions.
Yeah, I mean, you could set them up and they get a salary of 15 to 20,000 as a W-2, and you can set their comp up where it's an incentive based comp. I mean, they're not going to poke at, okay, the guy's making 80 grand a year, 20,000 of that is salary, 60,000 of that is some sort of bonus structure. What they care about, how many W-2 employees do you have?
Yep.
So look. I know it sucks. I know you got to pay FICA. I know it's a 7.5%, and so that's going to add to the P&L. But it's going to build value in the business the more W-2 employees you have. Pure and simple.
Absolutely. Let's talk about that cash versus accrual, what people want for roofing, what these private equity companies want for roofing, and what will hold you back from getting the value you deserve or the right buyer.
They want to see financials they can trust. They want to be able to verify that the numbers that we're showing them are valid numbers. And they want the financials to be reported out on an accrual basis and not on a cash basis. Now, a lot of our roofing guys, they're running everything on a cash basis, and that's the way they've always run the business. But from a buyer's perspective, they want to see accrual based financials because they want a true time recognition of revenue and expenses as they're being recognized in the business. And so either the seller needs to have converted over from a cash basis to an accrual basis, or when the buyer is going through due diligence, they're certainly going to do those conversions. And if they're doing those conversions, you don't know what the P&L is going to look like on the back end when it goes through this quality of earnings. And so all of that needs to be done on the front end so there are no surprises.
Yeah, I think it's partly, I mean, I feel like I'm not supposed to say this, but if you have a few years to clean that up, you know what you're engineering for. I'm not not trying to say we're trying to trick anybody, but you know what you're not trying to trick people. You're trying to get the money right. You're always trying to get your money right. You just want to get it right around the things that they actually care about.
And you want to be able to show them numbers they can trust over a 3-year period.
Yeah. Okay. 3 years. I like that. All right. Let's talk about number 3, owner dependency. If your business is dependent on the owner, on you, a lot of times, this is who we're talking to, then it's going to cause you to not get the multiple you deserve, or you won't have legit buyers. Why is that the case? And how can you decrease that?
Buyers are buying businesses' ability to produce cash flow. If the cash flow of that business is heavily dependent on the owner, and the owner is wanting to sell the business and walk away, that creates more risk from the buyer's perspective. Buyers want to see businesses that if the owner wants to sell the business and walk away from the business, that they have confidence that there's enough infrastructure in place from a leadership team standpoint, from a management team standpoint, that the business can continue to perform without the owner being involved daily within the business. It's that simple.
Awesome. Let's talk about this for a little bit deeper for a second. I think there's also a culture in some people that want to step out more completely in their business before it's ready. And I think it kind of comes from this. I think some people are like, yeah, you should be able to run this business without being there and all that stuff. And then some people take it too far. So I think a clarification for those of you who aren't ready to like step out a little bit more, it's like you still should not be abdicating responsibility for crucial decisions in your business. And I do think I was at an Alex Hermosi event recently, and he was like, this is the last leg. This is the final year is when you should be getting out of that key man position. Don't go 5 years too early on trying to be out. Like, you can still engineer a lot of growth moves in your business. Don't abdicate responsibility for those growth moves in the 3-5 years on the run up to the sale.
Yeah, and let me tell you specifically what I think that needs to look like.
Yeah.
You need to have a management team in place.
Mm-hmm.
You need to have documented processes in place. You need to have KPIs and metrics in place. You need to have some sort of management governance. that you as the CEO or you're monitoring the performance of the business, you're fixing problems when it arises, but the business is not dependent upon you.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, if you're working 5 to 10 hours a week, that's fine. That's fine. But be sure that you've got the right sort of reporting structure in place in those 5 to 10 hours where you know exactly how the business is performing. You're getting your KPIs, you're getting your metrics, you're getting your financial statements. I mean, you're not walking away and turning the phone off for a year and like, I don't know how it's doing. I haven't gotten a call, so I assume it's doing okay. You still need to be managed in the business within a corporate governance structure.
Yeah. Okay. Let's get to the next one here just to keep it rolling. This kind of relates to the accrual versus cash thing, but talk to me about not having clean books and what are really red flags for these guys.
I see this all the time. So there's the tax return that tells one story. There's the QuickBooks files that tells a second story. And then there's the real number. And so, forget the tax return because that's telling the story we want to tell from a tax standpoint. The QuickBooks files gets closer, but a lot of times embedded in the QuickBooks files, there's personal expenses, there are family members that we're paying salaries to, there's non-reoccurring charges that are in there, there's crap that's in there. And so when we get, they'll say, "Oh, I'll send you my tax returns." I'm like, dude, I don't care what your tax return shows. I want to see the QuickBooks files, and they'll send the QuickBooks files, and I'll see all this personal stuff. There's a $30,000 vacation here, or we built a pool in the backyard, and we ran those expenses through the business, and everyone's doing this to help us from a cash flow standpoint to get the business to pay for it, but also to help us from a tax standpoint because we're taking the deduction. So in order to market a business, we've got to get to what that real number is. We've got to take all that crap and we've got to pull it out. And so, your QuickBooks files might say the business is making $1 million a year, but hidden in there's another $300,000 worth of crap that's in there. We got to pull that $300,000 out, and so the real profit of the business is $1.3 million. Well, if we're going to show a buyer that, oh yeah, the QuickBooks file says this, but the real number is this, and there's 300,000 of crap that we're running through the business, buyer's going to say, wait a minute. How do I, if you're doing that and you want me to trust that you're pulling those numbers out, how do I know that there's not other stuff in here that I don't trust? You've got to have clean books that when we get into due diligence and a forensics accountant starts drilling through all this stuff, everything we're showing a buyer, we can document and we can support, and it's a true expense in the business. So the cleaner those books are going to be, the more confidence that the buyer has that the numbers are real, the more confidence that they have that there's integrity within the rest of the business, and they're going to pay a higher multiple, therefore.
Let's zoom in on that red flag of running personal expenses through, because that's essentially one of these 7, I think. Give me some, is it, okay, so I know this from experience, right? Like, there is tax benefits to not sitting there constantly putting stuff into personal that could go either way, right? Like if they're like if I'm on a trip and there's something with work, it makes sense to cover those expenses with work stuff. And that, frankly, that's how my life is. That's how a lot of entrepreneurs are. And it's not even like fudging the numbers. It's literally just like tax benefit. So at what point in the run up to a sale, say 2 years, 5 years, do you start to just get a little bit more stringent with keeping those? 3. It's all about 3. All right. I like it. Okay.
I'm not saying you've got to cut all that stuff out.
Yeah.
I'm saying gradually begin cleaning that stuff up.
Okay. And then there is, okay, so I'm just talking through what we do, not to like, I don't know, this is a little intimate, but like we do have profit and NOI separately a little bit. So like we know NOI is going to be a little bit more of an accurate number for what private equity would look at, NOI, and it's also what we'd incentivize teammates on around profitability, because if there is something that's on the line or in between, we would want NOI to be the guideline, not profit. So it feels like at least if you're looking at NOI comparatively, you'll have a better idea of what they would do. And the difference is it kind of takes out some of those more discretionary
Correct. Correct.
things.
Correct.
Just
Correct.
for the other people listening to this, I think that's been useful for us to focus a little bit on NOI because it's
Yeah. Yeah.
a little closer to EBITDA from what I can tell.
Yeah, and so think of it this way: regardless of how you've been running the business historically, they're going to take your historical numbers and they're going to build out pro formas on the way they're going to run the business. They're going to look at, okay, first 12 months, second 12 months, third 12 months, whatever. And so if there, whatever adjustments that they feel like need to be done on the way they're going to run the business, they're going to build those into their model. And it's that model that they're really going to base their valuation off of. I'll give you an example. And you'll like this because it's your world. Let's say a roofer is doing very little marketing. They don't have a digital agency. I don't know, they do some advertising, they do some billboards, whatever. And they're spending, I don't know, 10 grand a year in marketing. And so the historicals are going to show that 10 grand. Well, a buyer's going to look at it and say, okay, if we're going to put this thing on jet fuel, I mean, we've got to get all the departments functioning properly, and we want to grow the retail segment of our business. We want to allocate 100,000 to marketing, 200,000 to marketing. And so even though the previous owner has only been spending 10, when a buyer does their budgeting on a go forward basis, they're going to drop in a number. I mean, we're going to budget 100 grand for marketing. We're going to budget 200 grand for marketing, and so they're going to put what they think the appropriate spend is on something like marketing, the way they think the business needs to be run, and then they're going to base their ultimate valuation on the profitability that they think they can achieve based upon the way they're going to run the business.
Mm-hmm.
So there are going to be certain things that they're going to pull out, and then there are going to be other things that they're going to add back in.
Okay, that's good to know. And it's funny because just a note on the marketing side, it's so funny because some of these people are like, they'll sell their business or a chunk of it, and then the private equity company will just be like, all right, now we're going to market for real. And it's like, you could have just done that before you sold the business. You didn't have to sell the business to market your butt off. And like, ultimately that does increase, it's just people, I don't know. It's just a funny thing because I've seen people give up a lot of their business just for essentially that. And then they end up just dumping money in the marketing. And then it's like, you could have done that and increased your own valuation. But anyways.
100%. 100%.
Let's talk about family members on payroll not contributing. So talk to me about what that looks like. Why is that going to affect who's going to buy, or like how to deal with that if you've got that going on? No shame, because obviously that's smart for some people, but
I've got my 85-year-old father on the payroll, and I'm paying him 60 grand a year, and that's his retirement. And a buyer's going to look at that and say, dude, why are you still doing that? Mm-hmm. Or I've got my cousin on the payroll, or I've got my brother that's running the sales team and I'm paying him a salary of 400 grand. where the true market comp of what that guy should be earning is maybe $1.75 with a bonus. And so, I mean, a buyer's going to look at all that stuff that you've been doing for whatever reasons you've been doing. It's there, and they're going to clean all that stuff up.
Once you get to know us, there's no reason to buy from anybody else. What we do differently is we do stake in the factory. You're truly buying direct. We don't sell to distribution. We sell to roofers, the people that have been getting hurt for years. You keep getting price increases from suppliers. We do price decreases. We've had about 4 price decreases this year. VanBoxwellBuilding.com. We have a new website, the Amazon type platform. You go right on there, click it, put it in your cart. We can send it to you, or feel free to give us a call. We'll answer any questions for you.
It's a little bit like either you do it or they're going to do it once you sell, right? Like and I think about that too, is keeping employees that aren't good. And like sometimes a good question is, and I'm not saying you all have this, but most of you have some of this. It's like, who are the 2 people you think they'd fire after like 3 months? They just look and survey the field and they talk to the leaders and they say, who can go clean it up? Who are the 2 people that they're going to fire?
We all have it. We all have it. So you can look at all your employees, and I've owned and run 5 businesses in my life, and so I'm guilty of this as the next guy. And so you can take your employees and say, okay, I've got A players, I've got B players, I've got C players, and I've got D players. Okay, so those that are in that D bucket, they're there. And that they're not producing, that they're toxic, they're causing problems, but you keep kicking the can down the road because you don't want to have that hard conversation.
Yeah.
I mean, they're going to come in and they're going to clean that stuff up. So go ahead and clean. I mean, if you're going to show employees and they're buying the business's ability to produce cash flow and they want the employees to stick around and to be involved, be sure that all the employees that you're showing them, you're not having to apologize because of these D players that you haven't dealt with. Go ahead and deal with that stuff. As hard as it is, clean it up. Mm-hmm. It's hurting the business anyway.
Absolutely. Let's talk about tax returns. How could tax returns hold you back from selling your business? So we're getting to, I think this is like the 7th of like red flags that are going to stop your business from selling. What are the reason tax returns could hold you back?
Remember, I've said that there are 3 sets of financials. Mm-hmm. The tax return is going to tell one story. The QuickBooks files is going to tell another story. And the real number with all those add backs and adjustments is going to tell a third story. Okay, let's say your tax return shows that the business made $100,000. Let's say your QuickBooks file shows that the business made $1 million. Let's say that real number, when we do all these add backs and adjustments, says the business made $1.3 million. A buyer's going to look at, wait a minute, you're telling the IRS that you made $100,000. You're showing me a QuickBooks file here that says you made $1 million, and we make these adjustments that said the business made $1.3 million. Which number am I supposed to believe? If there is a huge gap between what your tax return shows and what the QuickBooks file shows, that's a red flag. Mm-hmm. I mean, I hate to say it, but a buyer might say, "Wait a minute, is there tax fraud in here somewhere?" Mm-hmm. I mean, you're maybe bumping up against that line a little bit. You got to clean that stuff up. Bite the bullet, pay the taxes.
Yeah, I think at a certain point, and we all have to do it. And maybe the point's a little later for some of us and a little earlier for other points. But like at a certain point, you almost just got to get into the mood for paying taxes.
Because if you want to get the maximum value for your business, you've got to show a buyer clean financials. Mm-hmm. And your tax return needs to show a number that's reasonably close with what the QuickBooks number is.
Yeah.
If you're 10 years away, then play loose if you want to. I mean, don't tell me, but just go do it. As you're getting close. As
This
you're getting
podcast is
closer and
for
closer,
entertainment purposes only.
no,
We
no.
cur-
As you're
we are
get
not lawyers.
as Earth is getting larger in the window, you got to start cleaning that stuff up, and you got to start biting the bullet.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I think like I follow this kind of simple numbers. This is a book.
I love Greg. Oh my God.
Yeah,
Yeah. Greg Crabtree's the best.
we have them as financial advisors for our company, and like a big. First of all, they're great. Oh my God, they're great. Simple numbers they're incredible. Highly recommend. Just for clarity, because I'm an idiot when it comes to money. I'm becoming, you know what? I'm changing my belief on this. I'm becoming smarter and smarter on money every day. But it's partly because of simple numbers, and they give me very clear financials and they give me recommendations based on those. And one of their big things is essentially you need to pay taxes, and more you need to pay taxes, and that's the sign of a healthy business. So if you can start to switch your mind, and I know it's tough, but like because we've all been trying to not pay taxes as much as we could for a period, legally, loopholes, etc., etc. But at a certain point you grow up and it's time to pay taxes. And honestly, it is. That's a sign of a healthy business that is paying taxes.
You're absolutely right.
And are there any other? We kind of didn't get into this, but the balance of residential and commercial, people trying to do both when buyers maybe just want one or the other. Talk to me about that.
Yeah. Buyers either want to buy residential roofing companies or they want to buy commercial roofing companies, and they get confused. If a guy is say, well, half my business is residential, half my business is commercial, a buyer looks at it and says, well, am I buying a residential company or am I buying a commercial company? I'm not saying it has to be 100% one or the other. I'm saying I'm saying probably 75 to 80% needs to be in either one category or the other category.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that I'll say to pay a lot of attention to is you've got to look at what the revenue mix is. How much of it's coming from new construction projects? How much of it's coming from storm related projects? How much of it's regular replacement retail business? And so, the and I know, if you're in Arkansas or you're in Colorado or you're in Florida, you're going to have hurricanes, you're going to have tornadoes, you're going to have hailstorms. I mean, stuff's going to happen just because where the business is physically located. You can't change that. But the as you can drive that new construction down, as you can drive the dependency of storm work down, then from a buyer's perspective, that we see this all the time. A roofer in Colorado, well, there were 3 hailstorms that came through last year. We had a great year. There haven't been any hailstorms that have come through this year. We haven't had a good year. I mean, think of the volatility that creates in the revenue of the business. Think of the volatility that creates in the cash flow profit of the business. And because of that, think about how a buyer is going to view the multiple that they're willing to pay because of that volatility. And so anything you can do to smooth out, to better balance what that revenue mix is, that's going to smooth out what the revenue components are, that's going to provide more predictability to the cash flow, is going to increase the value of the business.
It's really good. I have to do this as a PSA to private equity. Because frankly, this is the truth. Private equity is coming into this industry kind of blind. Some of them are blind because they see
100%.
Other
100%.
private equity coming in. They think, and it's true, the housing stock is getting older. They know that roofs have to be replaced. And then they are confused by the storm revenue, and then the next year, no storm. If 2 years happen in a row, now they're freaking out. Relax. It's still a good business. Roofing is awesome. We all have to get used to this. There will be another storm. And there are just some things you can't iron out as far as cash flow goes for roofing.
I
Yeah,
get it.
as long as private equity understands that, they will have a good time in this industry. And I still think they should come in and it's great and enjoy. But it's not ever going to get ironed out totally. And I think some of them are frustrated by that, which
They
just
are. They
relax a
are.
little. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, I can tell you, um, it was a feeding frenzy probably 3 or 4 years ago because everyone wanted to come into the space. I think in the last 3 or 4 years, private equity has learned a lot about the space. I would say that there are not as many buyers today as there would have been 3 or 4 years ago. I would say it's probably down 30%. But I would say the 70% that are remaining that are very active in the space, they're much more knowledgeable and they're much more committed to the space.
Hmm. Which is it's long term games with long term people. You really want to partner like that, anyways. Back to talking to roofing companies, like
100%.
you want people that aren't just in it for the cash grab for 3 years and flip the thing and go. How about 5 years? How about a little bit longer roll up? I think honestly, I think some of these ones that are going 10 years that are trying to do the long play because I think that they're really what I believe. I like the stock. You know, this the roaring kitty guy about GameStop. He said they asked him, "Hey, what are you doing? It's crazy. This is a bad move." And he's like, "I like the stock," which is I like the stock of roofing. I think it's going to the moon. I think that the industry has a lot of enterprise value left to find. I think that what people get confused by is a year or two down on revenue. That's not it. That's not the play anyways. You're not getting much for 3 years of growth. You're getting 30% more in the multiple change. Sure, that's a good chunk, but I'm saying like, what about the 10-year growth of this industry and all these home
Yeah,
services
yeah, yeah.
industries?
And I think a lot of people get hung up in this multiple arbitrage opportunity that we described. And you know, look at friggin' Warren Buffett. If Buffett's going to invest in the business, he's going to invest in the business because it's a good business and because he can buy it at a fair price. And he's not playing the multiple arbitrage game. He's buying good businesses in good sectors with good management teams that he can hold for the long term. And so if you take that perspective, if you're building a great business, it's going to have value regardless of what the multiple is that it's going to trade on today. So just build a great business, build a business that is going to be attractive to buyers. If the time is right and you want to pull the trigger, sell the business, pull your chips off the table. If you don't want to sell the business, you've got a great friggin' business that's generating it is the most powerful economic engine that any of us will ever find.
Mm-hmm.
Ride that puppy. Ride it.
Yep. Yes. Agreed. Great mindset. Yeah, I think sometimes when I look at talking to PE people and mergers, M&A people, and all this advisors, etc., I think people are like, "Well, I don't know if I should." Well, you should look at the things no matter what. That's why I'd say like
100%.
if you watched all the way to this point, you're wise. You're a wise business owner that's really trying to get the top value, but also fixing the things that private equity would want you to fix are going to make your life better too. So I like using P as a yardstick, and then maybe I won't sell, and maybe you won't sell, but you fix all these things and your life is better
You've got a great
and
business.
it's
Yeah.
good. All right. Well, thank you for being on. Where can people check you out if they would like to have you
They
advise
can
or
email me at jbartlett@brentwoodgrowth.com. They can call me at 908-377-7807. They can go to our website, brentwoodgrowth.com, and they can find me there. And if they want to contact me off the website, they can do that. They can go to my LinkedIn profile. They can find me there.
lots of private equity guys out there? What makes you different? What makes you somebody that they should talk to?
Well, we are M&A advisors, and we are hired by the business owner to run a market clearing process to get as much competition and as much interest from their business in the market to bring them back multiple offers so that they have optionality in terms of what they want to do with the business. We've got 1,200 buyers that are looking to buy roofing companies. We've got private equity guys. We've got independent sponsors. We've got family offices. We have other roofing companies that are looking to grow, and part of their growth strategy is through acquisition. We're going to look at the business. We're going to work with the business owner. We're going to help determine what we think the market is going to pay for the business. We're going to talk to him about what the different nuances of the deal structures are. We're going to talk to him about what type of buyer we think might be the best fit for him or her. We're going to get their feedback. We're going to run a market clearing process. We're going to bring him 5 to 10 offers so that he has choices. And he's had a chance to talk to each of these buyers. He understands who they are. He understands what they've done in the past. He understands what their vision with the company is. And we're here to give him options so that he or she can make the best choice for them with their business.
Absolutely. If they're not sure if they want to sell yet, is it appropriate? Would it be appropriate to chat with you, or
100%.
Okay.
They can call us. We'll do a valuation on the business today. We'll put some projections together as to what the business could be worth. They can see what that looks like from a financial standpoint. We don't charge anything for that. If they need some help growing and scaling the business, we've got a separate consulting group, and we can talk to them about if they feel like they need help in figuring this thing out. So it's never too early to get a valuation done. It's never too early to really. I mean, think about it. I mean, your business, 80 to 90% of your net worth is equity that you have in your business. Doesn't it make sense, at least on an annual basis, to get a valuation done to get an idea as to roughly what the business is worth? I mean, doesn't that sort of fit into your long-term financial plan? Anyway, we're happy to do that for you, just to give you that information. You'll become a better business owner knowing this information, and you'll think about your business differently.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being on the show. Thank you for taking the time, John. You illuminated some important crevices of this possible transaction for people. Probably help some people level up their business here too. So really appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you, dude. It's good to talk to you.
Yes,
Have a good week.
Thank you. The podcast is put on by hookagency.com, Hook Agency all over social media, and we love this industry. We work with a lot of people that are privately owned. We have some private equity companies. We are very service-oriented. Customer service is included with everything we do, and we care, and we're doing our absolute best to make good marketing for the roofing industry, level up the whole thing with a lot of you out there that are helping modernize this trade as well. So thank you, everyone, and see you next time.
Thanks, Tim.
Yes, sir.
Automate your communication with Proline, the only communication-first CRM for roofers. Because when you fix your communication, you'll sell more jobs.
We had 200% growth, and I attribute that to Proline.
But just with one automation, I was able to get 25 Google reviews.
Proline's not going to win the beauty pageant, but it will save your Saturday.
They're so thorough with every detail of the website. Working with Hook, the design is probably 50x better than any other design I've ever had. Their team is super communicative, and I mean this genuinely. I'm happy to pay you guys to work with us. It's been a tremendous experience.